Hello, my name is Richard Class. I am your lecturer on the topic of strategic planning, your pathway to success. What if I told you by implementing today's lecture, you would grow your business tenfold? I am sorry, I cannot promise that. It would be great if I could promise implementing the guidance of today's lecture would prevent you from such business failures as Kodak and Polaroid missing the move to digital, or Schlitz Brewing replacing barley malt with corn syrup to cut manufacturing time from 40 to 15 days, resulting in a product that tastes like pea soup. Or Nokia, Hitachi, BlackBerry, and Atari failing to innovate. But of course, I cannot promise that either. Business is about managing risk. Good strategic planning is about doing things differently than competition, so related efforts are risky. Creative and strategic thinking may make you feel uncomfortable if related actions necessitates leaving your comfort zone. The good news, strategic planning should reduce your risk in an uncertain world and help you view opportunities and competition in a different way. This lecture promotes strategic planning as a continuous process, not a one-and-done activity. It incorporates the martial arts idea of focused power, bold strikes, balance, and good defense. You will come to understand your strategic plan should form the basis for all other plans your organization develops, such as marketing and capital allocation plans. The strategic plan is a guide to keep focus on the most important initiatives and the right allocation of effort and resources to optimize stakeholder value. You will learn that strategies are based upon opportunities and threats external to the organization and not on the strengths or weaknesses of the enterprise. Strategy development is not about what you can do. It is about what customers want and how you will fill their needs better than competition. You will also learn that a good strategy will differentiate an enterprise from its competition. It is sustainable over the long term, and it is defendable by barriers constructed through legal or other means. Applying the insights from this presentation should allow you to separate good strategies from those that are suboptimal and avoid the pitfalls that are omnipresent in strategic plans and associated implementation efforts. Another key takeaway is the concept that the planning process requires continuous measuring of strategic initiative results and making modifications to tactical execution to enhance outcomes over the long term. Maintaining vigilance on how well you are doing helps address modifications rivals may make in their initiatives or changes that may occur in a dynamic marketplace. This slide summarizes the strategic planning process. It is also an outline for a strategic planning document, excluding the implementation section that is sometimes incorporated into the strategic plan, and sometimes it is developed as a separate attachment. During this lecture, I will discuss each component of the process and indicate best practices to help you develop a superlative blueprint for success. You will see in most strategic plans an introduction, specification of the enterprise's mission and vision, and objectives important for the organization to achieve. Key success factors and the delineation of the barriers preventing achieving key success factor attainment is not a typical component of a strategic plan. I include key success factors in my work streams to help stakeholders maintain focus on the most critical business elements. The environmental assessment is often termed a SWOT analysis. The focus of this effort is determining the internal strengths and weaknesses of the enterprise and identifying the external opportunities and threats that form the basis for most strategies. I will give you some filters to apply that will help you narrow down the SWOT components to the most important for incorporating into a strategic planning document. You will note in this process flowchart that strategies are developed based upon external opportunities and threats. If some objectives are not met by the strategies developed to address the external environment, then other initiatives must be considered. Lastly, you will note the feedback loop I spoke about in my introductory remarks. As a foundation for this lecture, I want to provide a few definitions and concepts. Let's start by distinguishing a good strategy from those that are not. The first characteristic of a good strategy is its ability to meet an organization's mission, vision, or management objectives. However, the most important characteristic and key insight into thinking strategically is that a great strategy is sustainable over a long term and gives an organization a differentiated competitive advantage over its competition. To illustrate this point, consider a pricing decision where a product has little to no attribute differentiation recognized by purchasers. A product like sugar. If a company lowers its price and promotes this price in the hopes of capturing market share, all a competitor needs to do is lower their price. Therefore, an initial lower price will not result in a sustained improvement in market share. A lower price is only a competitive tool if an entity has a superior cost structure and therefore can lower its price to a level rivals cannot sustain and maintain profitability. Jim Moran's book illustrates this point. Jim Moran sold gasoline. His lease rate for his gas station was based upon the amount of petrol he sold. He negotiated that rate down from 1 cent to a half a cent per gallon, convincing his landlord he would make more money based upon an increase in gas sales volume. Jim Moran dropped the price of gasoline at the pump and captured significantly more market share. Competitors could not match his gasoline price because their lease rates were much higher. An additional benefit to Jim Moran was an increase in business for other services such as lubrications, tire and battery replacements, and other forms of repair. Great strategies have a characteristic where product and service features all work together to make it difficult for rivals to gain market share. Consider Apple, that integrated many features into its iPhone that consumers valued, and rivals had to play catch-up to a brand that became known for its ease of use, technology, and the best-in-class integration of music. The investors on the show Shark Tank often mention the importance of scalability. This concept refers to the ease and ability of rapidly bringing an offering to many customers. For example, it's easier to sell books to a national audience online than depending upon brick and mortar stores. Consider behavioral health services. Which is the winning strategy in the long run? Building expensive office space to render therapy or offering the same service online? Even group therapy can now easily be offered through an online meeting platform. Here is a simplified interpretation of Porter's generic strategies. If you're a large company and play in many different product or service arenas, then you're going to compete primarily on cost leadership or differentiation. Cost leadership means you produce a product or service at a much cheaper level than rivals. This allows you to use a low price to capture market share. Competing with a differentiated product means your offerings are distinctive and have the features and benefits customers want. Customers are generally willing to pay a premium price for distinctive offerings. Conversely, if you're a smaller enterprise, the best way to compete is to identify a market segment that is profitable, yet large enough to commit human and capital resources to capture market share. The highly focused strategy requires the identification of the special needs of the market. These needs can be product features or service attributes that are not currently available to consumers. By optimally fulfilling a targeted customer cohort's needs, smaller organizations can outcompete the Goliaths that scatter their resources and focus across many different product and/or service offerings. Focus strategies pay special attention to the marketing mix. That is, product features and benefits, pricing levels, promotion opportunities, and channel of distribution options. A relatively new academic insight emanates from the work of Professors Kim and Morbone. They split industries into two categories. The first category they term as red ocean. Companies that compete in a red ocean face fierce competition. Strategic initiatives focus on beating rivals. In this environment, you either win or you lose, so it's a zero-sum game. The second category is termed blue ocean. Industries in this category stake out a new market space. Strategic initiatives make competition irrelevant, meaning a company has no rivals and has no threat of substitute products taking market share. Strategic initiatives focus on creating value through innovation. Examples of companies swimming in a blue ocean is Cirque du Soleil, Amazon, Cordis, a Johnson & Johnson division that controlled the coronary stent business, and NetJets. The real-world applicability of finding a blue ocean opportunity is difficult, so I think this theory for most business enterprises is not implementable. A common point of confusion is the difference between a strategy versus a tactic. Simply, a strategy is defined as the activity implemented to meet the organization's mission or vision. A tactic is the activity implemented to execute a strategy. In the real world, it's hard sometimes to differentiate between the two. The number of people involved in strategy development meetings should be less than 10. This number may include people that work inside or outside the organization. Minimizing the number of participants that comprise a planning committee makes it easier to facilitate meetings and get in-depth contributions from the executives that can contribute to an optimal outcome. It is not uncommon for executives to conduct strategic planning sessions as team-building exercises attended by dozens of employees. Obviously, it is difficult to get a lot accomplished in this circumstance. Moving through a strategic planning process often requires the help of many people in the organization. Most staff supporting the process, such as market researchers and financial analysts, will not have a seat at the table where the strategic initiatives are discussed and finalized. Given the importance and prestige of participating in strategic planning, senior management should exercise care in how it communicates why the exercise is necessary and who is participating in the strategy sessions. No division head likes having the responsibility for implementing strategic initiatives developed by another party, particularly when they had no input into the process. It is incumbent upon senior management to explain the planning committee will remain small, but there will be ample opportunity for a cross-section of constituencies to comment on implementation requirements, including the tactics that impact their area of responsibility. There are many ways to bring staff into the planning process and yet keep the number of people responsible for strategy development small. In-person interviews and online surveys are two options to engender inclusivity and elicit information across a broad spectrum of employees. In larger organizations, the when question is a formidable obstacle. Finding time on the schedules of a plethora of busy executives is a challenge. A good time to start the strategic planning process is just after the close of an organization's fiscal year, when the annual performance data is available. Strategic planning meetings should be held off-site whenever the budget permits. Executives are far more likely to think strategically when they are in a more relaxed setting than at their place of business. Further, they are less likely to be called away to handle the emergency of the hour. To make sure all pre-planning activities are accomplished on time and related meetings are organized and resourced appropriately, it is important to appoint an internal leader that is dedicated to the planning initiative. Pre-planning activities include discussing the planning process that will be followed, the data collected and analyzed in preparation for stakeholder information sharing sessions. The budget for completing a strategic planning initiative can range from $0 to tens of thousands of dollars, depending upon decisions regarding food, travel, off-site facility, outside consultant utilization, and other potential expenses. Small business faces the challenge in allocating a large enough budget to include some of these line items. One of the most critical pre-planning activities is identifying a facilitator that can lead an executive team through a strategic planning exercise. Using an employee as a facilitator presents a significant challenge, but is a viable option for enterprises with a constrained budget. When you have conversations about developing a strategic plan, communicate how you define the term. This is because some people equate a strategic plan as a business plan, a campus master's facility plan, or simply pro forma financial statements extending beyond 1 year. Strategic plans typically cover established business enterprises and focus on creating a sustainable competitive advantage over the long term. By comparison, a business plan has a near-term, short planning horizon. It is most useful for startup enterprises seeking funding. Existing enterprises use a business plan to investigate the viability of a money-generating or expense-reducing opportunity. For example, a company may want a business plan to validate the return on investment of acquiring up-to-date manufacturing equipment. An organization will have a variety of planning documents. To help distinguish between the various plans, consider the goals of each. The strategic plan should provide a blueprint for long-term organization success, and it should drive much of the content of all other planning-related documents. The strategic plan should answer 4 basic questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? And how do we deliver value to our stakeholders? The implementation plan is part of the strategic plan, but it is sometimes a separate document. The implementation plan answers questions about strategic priorities, delegated responsibilities, and specific tactics necessary for strategy execution. Business plans are one-off documents, often used to raise money or show the need for acquisition of an expensive asset. To illustrate, a bank may want to see the overall direction of a company for extending a line of credit in addition to a review of various financial statements. Another example is senior leadership requesting a business plan to understand the efficacy and profitability of replacing machinery to cut costs or adding new equipment to drive more customer volume. Capital plans address the need for the funding of new or the replacing of various expensive assets such as plant and equipment. It consists of all capital expenditures, not just those necessary for strategic plan execution. Marketing plans cover product mix strategies, pricing strategies, promotion activities, and distribution channel decisions. Distribution channel decisions include such options as online versus in-store, or using wholesalers or jobbers versus selling direct to retailers or consumers. Every strategic plan starts with a set of assumptions. These assumptions should be determined early in the planning process and disclosed in the introduction section of the plan document. The first assumption is the plan term, sometimes referred to as the planning horizon. The plan term is determined by the business nature of the industry. Illustrating this point, a cell phone company strategic plan may be no more than a year because the competitive environment is very dynamic. Manufacturers are consistently launching new market entries with advanced technological capabilities. Comparatively, a utility company may have a strategic plan that has a 20-year outlook because of the time horizon it takes to bring new electricity generating facilities online. Important assumptions for some entities may include such variables as interest rates, material costs, and supply availability, and the regulatory environment. The mission statement tells the world the business you are in. Let us look at a few illustrations. The American Heart Association's mission statement is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. The American Heart Association is a national voluntary health agency whose mission is building healthier lives free of cardiovascular disease and stroke. The American Diabetes Association has the mission statement, prevent and cure diabetes and improve the lives of all people affected by diabetes. The vision statement tells the world how you plan to evolve as an enterprise. Let's take a look at the vision statement of two well-known not-for-profit entities. The Alzheimer's Association's vision statement is a world without Alzheimer's disease. The American Diabetes Association vision statement is, the vision is a life free of diabetes and all its burdens. What I like about both of these vision statements is that they are short and address a specific outcome. To me, the Alzheimer's Association vision statement is better. What I don't like about these vision statements is there is no time certain, stake in the ground for completion. To illustrate, my company's mock vision statement is to become the facilitator of choice for developing winning strategies by the Fortune 500 by 2025. The importance of the vision statement is often underestimated. Consider Bill. His vision is to become the most successful not-for-profit food bank in all of Fort Lauderdale. Bill has no desire to expand beyond his restricted service area. On the other hand, Mary has the vision of growing her not-for-profit food bank to 10 new cities in 5 years. Think about the differences in strategic thinking between these two entrepreneurs. Mary is much more likely to consider growing through partnerships and look for expansion opportunities in underserved areas not already saturated with readily available options. Mary will have to take on more financial risk, do more fundraising, and build a team of professionals to support her vision. My story will help you understand the importance of defining a business in a way that maximizes stakeholder value. My company's enterprise was Blizzard Fan and Blower Company. Our focus was on products for industrial use. One of our products was an air curtain that kept flying insects out of warehouses. There came a time when I had to make a choice of either operating the business myself or selling the enterprise. I chose to sell the company. I was too myopic in my thinking and did not recognize the opportunity in front of me. Had I rethought the business I was in, I would have made a different decision. First, I missed the big move in homeowners purchasing paddle fans. But even in the industrial segment, I could have turned the larger air curtain into a hand-drying apparatus. I knew there must have been a better way of drying hands. Our own shop workers and I experienced the unsanitary method of using the rolling towel system of the day. I would have been first to market many years ahead of Dyson. Dyson has a commercial hand-drying apparatus in the bathrooms of nearly every commercial enterprise across America, and maybe even in many parts of the world. Dyson generates almost $6 billion a year in revenues and has a market cap of almost $1 trillion. They define their business as moving air, regardless of commercial versus consumer market application. Dyson targets opportunities where better engineered offerings bring customer value, even for products previously thought in the declining phase of their life cycle. It is important not to screen out an opportunity because it is not within the current vision of the enterprise. Implementation requires too much investment or reallocation of current resources, or is politically painful. If the opportunity is of such magnitude that pursuing it could result in a blue ocean strategy or otherwise materially increase the enterprise's value to stakeholders, it is worth finding a way to fund related initiatives and make the hard decisions that impact the organizational chart. It is imperative that senior management and the board recognize the external threats that may drive a business into bankruptcy. Consider the decision Blockbuster made in not acquiring Netflix because they viewed their model as leasing movies on a tape or CD through brick and mortar retail stores. Blockbuster had the opportunity of acquiring Netflix for $50 million. Blockbuster missed the move to the eventual streaming of content over the internet. Today, Blockbuster is out of business, and Netflix market cap is around $225 billion. Consider IBM's opportunity to purchase Microsoft. IBM was steadfast in its positioning as a manufacturer of large mainframe computer systems and other business equipment. They shunned the idea of broadening their vision of becoming a software company. The magnitude of this mistake is illustrated by the fact that IBM's market cap is about $111 billion versus Microsoft that is worth about $1.6 trillion. Even at Microsoft's 1986 initial public offering price, the market cap was less than $700 million. Objectives within a strategic plan are best set as a collaborative process among stakeholders. In the real world, within larger companies, objectives are sometimes specified by top management without any regard to marketplace realities. For example, we will grow gross revenues by 10% in this fiscal year. The first characteristic of a well-written objective is that it is achievable. It is okay to specify a stretch goal, but caution is suggested in setting objective targets that are seemingly out of reach. Understandably, an unattainable target is damaging to the psyche of managers and team members responsible for meeting an unrealistic expectation. Well-written objectives are quantifiable. That is, they contain an associated target dollar amount, unit measure increase, or percentage increase. Acceptable objectives are time-specific, meaning they may be reached in year 1, 3, or 5 of the planning horizon. A good set of objectives are diverse. They cover a variety of organizational departments. In this way, most people in the enterprise see they have a part in working together to achieve desired outcomes. Putting together all of the characteristics of a good objective, consider these illustrations. We will grow net revenues by a compounded annual rate of 10% over the next 3 years. We will implement a recruitment program that fills all vacant nursing positions within 12 months. Putting together all the characteristics of a good objective, consider these illustrations. Grow unit sales volume of widgets by 5% in 2021, 3% in 2022, and 2% in 2023. Hire 20 data scientists in the next 12 months. Place 1 new advertisement per month over the next 3 years in social media. You will note they are simple sentences with a quantifiable target and specific time horizon. Key success factors, or KSS for short, are the 3 to 5 things that will make an organization successful, regardless of other business factors. To illustrate, consider a developer that owns beachfront property in Fort Lauderdale. This asset should contribute much to the success of the enterprise. If a hospital administrator employs all the top referring physicians to specialists, that hospital will be successful. As a consultant, if I know a lot of decision makers in large companies and they like my work, I will be successful. Interestingly, the TV show 60 Minutes ran a story showing how a blind architect became a key success factor for a firm bidding on various projects. Having a blind architect on the team gave the firm a unique and differentiating asset. Currently, companies such as Netflix, Disney, and Hulu all view content as key success factors. They are maintaining their focus on the critical asset by either acquiring existing content or developing their own proprietary shows. Some consultants use key success factors as a mechanism to screen in or out an internal strength or weakness from consideration during the planning process. To me, using KSS as a screening mechanism is usually too restrictive. The environmental assessment usually happens in 2 phases. Phase 1 is a thorough look at internal and external data to obtain an unbiased view of market sizes and trends, product or service sales, competitive positions, profitability, and environmental factors that can influence the profitability of the enterprise. The second phase is comprised of a SWOT analysis, usually accomplished as a collaboration among stakeholders. Keep in mind that strengths and weaknesses are attributes controlled by the organization. For example, management team, financial position, marketing prowess, labor-saving production equipment, and supplier contracts are within the purview of the company to address by making good decisions. Opportunities and threats are external to the organization and therefore not controllable by management. Examples include population growth in a specific community, a governmental policy change that increases reimbursement from insurance companies for telemedicine services rendered by healthcare providers, rising or falling interest rates, tariffs placed on raw materials emanating from China. Here is an example of what a completed SWOT analysis looks like. You will note the internal strengths and internal weaknesses are all controllable by the enterprise. Conversely, the external opportunity and external threat are outside of management's ability to influence. I will show you at the end of the presentation how this SWOT analysis is incorporated into a strategy statement. At the conclusion of the SWOT analysis, there is typically a laundry list of internal strengths and weaknesses. Some attributes may not warrant inclusion as a strategic insight. A good way to trim the list is to apply a filter that compares the organization's performance against competition as a whole's performance. To demonstrate, management team may be initially thought of as a strength. Consider the question, is your management team better than, the same as, or worse than your competition's management team? If the response is the same as, or worse than competition's management team, then this attribute would come off of the strengths list. Conversely, if management team is initially identified as a weakness, but upon further assessment, this attribute is not really worse than your rival's position, then it would come off of the weaknesses list. If the SWOT analysis identifies too many opportunities to address, a filter will help eliminate the less important ones to investigate. I like applying the filters of the size of the opportunity, ease of implementation, strategic impact on the enterprise, and sustainability of the strategy over the long term to deliver intended results. It is important not to screen out an opportunity because it is not within the current vision of the enterprise. Implementation requires too much investment or reallocation of current resources, or is politically painful. If the opportunity is of such magnitude that pursuing it could result in a blue ocean strategy, or otherwise materially increase the enterprise's value to stakeholders, it is worth finding a way to fund related initiatives and make the hard decisions that impact the organizational chart. If the SWOT analysis identifies a lot of threats, a filter will reduce the list to those of most concern. I first apply the filter of amelioration, meaning, can you do something about it so there is less harm to the business? Other important filter items include the potential size of the adverse impact of the threat and how soon the threat could arise. Of course, the effort to mitigate the threat must be worth the effort and expense. After you complete the SWOT analysis and start thinking about strategy development, consider your competitive position. Your competitive position may be defined in several ways. The first is market share. Brand awareness in important market segments is another variable. You should consider the markets in which you want to compete and add resources versus markets that you do not or no longer warrant a concerted focus. This thought process should lead to decisions regarding your organization's product or service portfolio mix that is a significant contributor to maximizing revenue generation. I want to give you tools you can use to help make market and portfolio related decisions. Analyzing where you want to compete is simplified by this type of matrix. It provides a visualization of where target actions are warranted. This situational assessment matrix is for my company. you can see my efforts should go towards protecting and defending my existing clients and referral base, new opportunities to target advertising agencies, develop big data analytics services, and sell retainer contracts for strategic planning presents potential new revenue streams. The most difficult markets for me would be continuing to compete for general market research services, go after large corporate accounts, and try to penetrate governmental agencies for small business contracts. For sure, I don't want to spend any resources on trying to procure clients in the highly competitive data collection services space, as indicated in the lost cause quadrant of the matrix. The life cycle concept is easy to understand. Virtually every industry and every product or service is born and eventually dies. Every life cycle stage sees new or existing rivals, changes in pricing strategies among competitors, and shifts in profitability. Organizations should use analysis of life cycle position to ultimately make decisions on industries to enter or exit and products or services that warrant more or less resources. A company's portfolio, or the mix of its products and/or service offerings, is a very important attribute contributing to success. Obviously, core offerings that are highly desired by consumers that can currently have great profit margins are ideal. But another factor is the projected sales trajectory of each offering. You want to invest in growing opportunities and diminish resource allocations towards products or services entering the declining phase of their life cycle. It is a frequent strategy for companies to sell off whole divisions, even though they are profitable. These divisions just don't meet their growth needs to meet investor expectations or return on capital requirements. All enterprises, regardless of size, should be highly focused on looking for long-term profitability and adjust their asset allocations accordingly. The life cycle curve has 4 cycles. First, there is an introduction phase where there is little to no competition. Unit prices are high, profitability is typically excellent. The second phase is a period of sales growth. Prices are still high and profitability is good, but good profitability starts to attract rivals. Maturity is a phase where competition is stiff. Market share is splintered. Rivals start offering reduced price options to capture share. As a result, margins start declining. The last phase is highlighted by declining sales volume. Prices and profits have eroded substantially. Some players decide to leave the fray. The Boston Consulting Group is very well known. They use a quadrant analysis as a similar analytical tool to the life cycle curve. Their question mark quadrant is for new market entrants, products or services, where market success is not definitively known. The stars quadrant is for products or services that are driving growing revenues and profitability. The cash cow segment is for offerings that are generating consistent cash flows and profitability. The dog segment is offerings where unit sales and profitability are declining. An interesting way to view the two concepts is to overlay the 4 attributes. You can see how the Boston Consulting Group matrix designations align with the life cycle stages. Companies are always looking for ways to change the slope of the life cycle curve. This is often accomplished by improving technology or adding product features and benefits to existing products. One good example is the mobile phone. Without changing the product from a basic communication device to a multi-purpose handheld computer, the cell phone would be at the tail end of the life cycle curve. Without much product differentiation, the prices of a basic phone would be cheap. TV sets are another example. The move from analog to digital revived the life cycle of this consumer good. Everyone now wants a great big screen with ever-increasing clarity. I want to point out the idea that blue ocean versus red ocean could be superimposed on the life cycle curve. Eventually, competition will find a way of turning a blue ocean red, sending a product into a maturity and eventually decline phase of its life cycle. Strategy and tactical implementation could start or get completed anytime during the planning horizon. So the number of strategies considered may not be problematic if there is time to meet stakeholder expectations. Strategies may be filtered out or rank ordered to bring focus on the most important efforts. The simplest of filters considers the strategy vis-a-vis the organization objectives and mission and potential to achieve the vision over the long term. Other considerations may include such factors as ease of implementation and the ability to achieve returns that are worth the financial risk. A mistake executives make is developing strategies that call for fixing issues with operations, marketing, information systems, plant and equipment, and other weaknesses management identifies. While fixing related problems internal to the enterprise may be important, they are not strategic. Consider a company that had a facility where the elevators didn't work. The reception area looked terrible for customers, and the computer operating system was 2 generations old. And then I disclosed this company made buggy whips, manual typewriters, or manual adding machines. It did not make a difference if this company fixed its internal issues. They would be out of business because they failed to address the threats they faced in the marketplace. A fix-it only requires good management to address the shortcoming. No strategic thought is required. Here is an example of a strategy statement identified through the SWOT analysis. This example is for a home design company. The opportunity identified was 50,000 new homes in Buttonville. The strategy is to expand operations by opening a new store in Buttonville Town Center. The internal strengths supporting this strategy is the organization's design professionals, widespread brand recognition, and relationships with developers that are good referral sources. It is great, but not necessary, that a strategy is built on internal strengths. You often can find ways to garner the assets you need to successfully execute a strategy. You should particularly note that one strategy can address multiple objectives. In this case, implementing this strategy will help grow revenues by 3%, enter 2 new markets per year, and create advancement opportunities for the design team. This illustrates that strategy formulation should never first be built on objectives unless the SWOT analysis does not identify an external opportunity or threat that relates to an objective. Consider this strategy identified from the threat portion of the SWOT analysis. The threat is U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods. Unfortunately, a design firm weakness is having China manufacturers as its exclusive import partner, and very few procurement professionals on their team. The strategy to ameliorate the external threat is to expand the supply chain options. The SWOT analysis typically does not cover every strategy you want to consider, so I always recommend a brainstorming session to identify breakthrough ideas that could produce significant revenues or materially transform the enterprise to enhance stakeholder value. The last step in generating strategies for the enterprise is looking at your objectives and making sure there is a strategy that addresses each one. In most cases, you will find strategies derived from the SWOT analysis adequately address the objectives established during the planning sessions. In conclusion, I want to address the topic of the secret sauce. I do not believe that there is one secret sauce for every entrepreneur. However, I do believe there are common elements that separate the great entrepreneurs from others. These common elements include a superior ability to execute on a strategic plan that addresses large market opportunities through innovation and protect that innovation from duplication by rivals. Successful entrepreneurs find a way to maintain control of their business through thoughtful capitalization and financing mechanisms. Their portfolios of products or service offerings are continually honed to drive revenue growth and great returns on capital. Jim Moran and so many other successful business executives make the best use of consultants and other team members that have superior market and business savvy, and then share the wealth that comes with meeting organizational objectives. Jim Moran and other successful entrepreneurs put the customer first by offering a fair price, great quality, and exceptional product design. Maybe most importantly, they have a customer acquisition plan that is scalable and cost efficient. Jim Moran said, "Make it easy for the customer to say yes." I want to quickly discuss the secret sauce for two very well-known not-for-profits. Let's first see if you can guess who they are. One excels at partnering with large companies and gets their executives to prompt their employees to give through payroll deductions. The second not-for-profit excels at a health insurance company partnership to promote coverage to seniors. If you guessed the United Way and AARP, you're right. In Broward County alone, the United Way raises $12 million a year in contributions and another $9 million a year in grants. Now, take a guess at how much AARP gets from United Healthcare every year. Would you believe AARP receives almost $1 billion a year? AARP does not have to do much but lend their name to United Healthcare. They have the membership United wants to enroll into their Medicare Advantage plan. Your challenge is to find a way to supplement the typical fundraising activities you perform with other mechanisms that will help you to raise unrestricted funds. These opportunities may be there for such initiatives as partnerships with retail or manufacturing entities, royalties for endorsements or access to those you serve, or assistance for recruiting patients into a clinical trial. The social media site GoFunding may also be a potential vehicle you want to explore for a unique fundraise. Thinking outside the box to address a significant opportunity could get you to the next level. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. For those of you that are interested in continuing to develop your knowledge of strategic planning, I suggest you read two books: Harvard Business Review's 10 Must-Reads on Strategy and Professor Kim's and Morebone's Blue Ocean Shift. For those of you that are analytically inclined, you should get a copy of the book Segmentation and Positioning for Strategic Marketing Decisions by James Myers. I recently picked up a copy for a friend on eBay for under $5.